at Tom's Fuel Mart number 4, that's right there near the Cleveland Speedway. You get the best homemade biscuits, sandwiches, and that includes the best fried bologna sandwiches in town. Just ask the Matador. That's right, Tom's Fuel and Mart, where you can find 100% gasoline. That means no ethanol, folks, for your lawnmowers and small engines. Do it. With locations on South Lee Highway, Wildwood, and North Ocoee, Tom's Fuel Mart, with the red and yellow sign 25 feet from the street, is ready to serve you. Yee-haw!
You're listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson on Whoop FM. Call 423-614-5553 to join in on the conversation. Now, back to Backfire.
Welcome back to Backfire. We've got Andy Brown and John Stansberg here today. We've talked about some local issues, and we've talked about some of the state issues coming along, and we're going to take this first call. Go.
Good morning, Steve. I'm in Ron.
Hey there. Bullet, how you doing this morning?
Oh, pretty good. I don't know if it's getting in too early or not, but I listened to the speech last night of the president, and he brought up one thing that's kind of stirred up some eyebrows, and I think it's wants to raise the minimum wage to $9 an hour. I think the minimum wage now is more than I used to make when I worked at Magic Shelf, but I just want to let your guest comment on that. And I think I don't know how many topics he had last night. I think it was about 9 or 10, but I was listening to the people that when the president's speech ends talking about it, they were saying that they always got a good speech, but they don't ever, I can't think of the word for it now. Anyway,
it's not ever true or follow through.
Yeah, I think most of those speeches are just they really talk to the base more than they do to Congress, you know. All right, Bill, we'll give an answer to that. Good talking to you this morning.
Okay, thanks.
$9 an hour, what do you think?
Well, I mean, it's another tax, and there's multiple problems here. Mm-hmm. It's a great political pandering effort. You know, it always sounds good to say, "Oh, we're going to pay you more." Listen to this, folks. That's a 25% increase in the minimum wage. Now, if you're running a small business, can you imagine? Let's say that all of your employees are minimum wage employees. Can you imagine the government in one stroke of a pen increasing your costs 25%? What happens is, what's really bad is the very people that he says he wants to help, it actually hurts. When you raise the minimum wage, companies cut back on employees. They don't hire these people. And the vast majority of people on minimum wage are actually teenagers and college kids, people that are working on the side. It's not a 40-year-old father trying to support a family. So you actually hurt the people that you say you want to help.
Well, here's the thing is that I think it was originally a Republican idea, and the president brought this up last night. Well, to go back real quick, the State of the Union is just to basically make the country aware of the state of the union, and that's it. Put some promises or put some ideas out there, not to really give too much detail, so don't expect that just in the general speech. But with regard to minimum wage, the Republicans are the ones who originally put this idea out just in the past, year. And the idea is that we need to tie the minimum wage to the cost of living. And that way we don't have to worry about this situation where people are living in a minimum wage scenario that is below the poverty line. So if we tie it to the cost of living, we account for inflation, then the minimum wage will increase over time, as it should, with the cost of living. Well, if we go back to the days of Maytag, I mean, I don't know when that was for the individual who called in, but I'd say that when you were working at Maytag, things were much less expensive to buy. Well, now we've got things that are more expensive, and if we still had that same minimum wage, people certainly couldn't get by on the minimum wage.
First off, that was not a Republican idea. It was an idea by the Republican nominee who got beat pretty securely at the polls. If the minimum wage works so well, why don't we make it $20 an hour? Why don't we make it $100 an hour? If it doesn't hurt anybody, if it doesn't hurt any business, if it doesn't cost any jobs, let's set it at $50 an hour. Here's the real hypocrisy here. The last time we fought this, Nancy Pelosi was the leader of the Democrats, and they were in charge. And she went out on the public, on all of the talk shows, and she said, this doesn't hurt businesses. It doesn't cost jobs. That's just a Republican lie. Well, in the bill, she slipped in an exemption for Starkist tuna. Guess where Starkist tuna is located? It's located in her district. So while she's out telling people, oh, it won't hurt any businesses, but in her own district, she actually slipped in an exclusion so that the minimum wage employees in her district weren't going to get the minimum wage, which, as you understand, is an admission that it was going to hurt business.
Here's the difference, and we can draw a line real quick between John and I on this. I would say, and John, if you want to correct me, then go ahead, but John doesn't believe at all that there should be a minimum wage. I believe that there should be, and I'd say that John's position is probably that government intervention in any type of business is a bad idea, and that's a general conservative philosophy, and I can understand that. But if we talk about the presidential nominee and his position on tying the minimum wage with cost of living, the American people sounded off, I believe, and said that, Mr. Romney, your ideas are archaic, that you are not necessarily following with what the people want right now. Therefore, Barack Obama is going to get reelected. So the idea that we need to go farther to the right with an idea such as removing all the federal minimum wage and that, that there's no reason that people should be guaranteed a certain type of living is something I think that the American people
then why don't we set it at $20?
Well, John, is that what you? Is
no,
that your
I'm
proposal
asking,
today?
No, you're telling me that there's no problem with the government sticking their hand into private businesses and forcing them to pay a certain amount. So why don't you set it at $20?
What I'm saying is there's got to be a baseline based on the cost of living.
Every time the minimum wage has gone up, employment of those young people has actually dropped off.
So
you've hurt the very people you claim to want to help.
So are you saying that it's okay for the lowest wage that you make to be below the poverty line?
Well, first off, that's a whole nother discussion as well.
Because what the minimum wage is intended to
if you want to get into the discussion of the poverty line, the way we define poverty when it was started under the Johnson administration has greatly changed. It used to be based on food consumption of the family budget. Food consumption at the time was 25% of the budget back in the 50s when we established this. Food consumption now is only about 10%. So the way we figure poverty levels are actually wrong. So there's all kinds of problems involved in this. And the fact of the matter is, the real thing when you boil it down is, folks, do you want the government telling you how to live your life? Do you want, if you're starting a small business, do you want the government telling you, not only will we tell you how much to pay, but we're going to make that go up every year? And guess what, folks? If you buy a product from that company, if his minimum wage goes up every year, the cost of his product goes up every year. If the cost of his product goes up every year, then the consumer price index goes up every year, which makes the minimum wage go up again the next year.
Okay, now let me. The president said $9. Do you think that's too much? I know, John, you think that's
too much. It's a 25% increase, Ron. Okay,
but would you?
Or let me ask you, when you ran the cable television industry, would you have raised your rates 25% in 1 year?
No.
What would happen to your business if you did that?
I got yelled at when I raised it, period.
What would happen to your business if you had raised the cable TV rates 25% in 1 year?
It's the same for everybody.
What would have happened?
Yeah, I would have lost people.
You would have lost business.
But I bet you raise them your cable rates more often than every 15 years.
Every year you raise 3 or 4% because of the cost going up.
So maybe it should go up and associated with the cost of living, that it's modified on a yearly basis as opposed to just taking a big lump hit.
Well, then why don't we just set everybody's rates?
We're a bad example because we didn't pay minimum wage. So, but now would you say $8.50 or $8.75 or nothing? I mean,
if you're going to have a minimum wage, it ought to be a minimum. In other words, it ought to be a floor.
Okay.
The problem is the government gets involved and they start buying votes with this, and that's what this is about. This is the president buying more votes. Now, I don't know what he needs them for now. He's back in. He bought his votes earlier. But that's all this is. This is government sticking its hand in one person's pocket and pulling some money out and giving it to someone else. That is not what this country was based on, and it's not what's made this country great.
Well, the greatest country in the known world, I think, should have a floor with which people can live on. And the more people
live how?
live in a house.
Well,
poverty level people don't have homes. They live on the streets.
Let me give you. No, they don't. That's ridiculous. Let me give you.
Well,
I'll give you some balance on it. The average poverty level home in America is 3 times the average medium-sized apartment in Europe. Our poverty level people have 3 times the square foot of a middle class family living in Europe. So this idea that they need to have a minimum level. There are people in Haiti, 90 miles off the coast of America, eating dirt to survive.
And is that what we want in the greatest country in the world?
But don't sit around and say that people are starving in America. If they're starving, it's because they're eating ho-hos and Coke instead of buying potatoes and bread.
If you live below the poverty line, you will be homeless.
What's the poverty line?
I don't know, but
Did you know that the poverty line, when they figure it, doesn't include any government benefits?
It doesn't make a bit of difference.
It does. Now think about that.
No.
You have an income.
No. Let me finish.
All right, let's get this call.
All right, we'll
come back. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question for the Esquire Brown over there. I was going to ask him what he would say about if I started my own country with a damn ho-hos and Coke country is what I'm going to do.
That's Abby Jones, I'm pretty sure. And these loaded questions, I don't know how to respond to them. And in John's world,
what are you talking about, man?
In John's world, with the ho-hos and people getting fed like that, that's an unfortunate situation. And quite frankly, I think that we, as a society, should expect more.
We should expect more. We should expect more out of our damn president. I'm going to go up there and start my own damn country and secede from the damn union if we ain't careful.
All right.
But I enjoy y'all's show and all. So.
All right, thank you.
All right.
You are aware that when they figure the poverty level, let's say a family gets welfare and they get food stamps and they get assistance on their rent, none of that is factored in. Did you know that the average person on government assistance, when you total it up, is actually earning above the average taxpayer at this point? A couple $1,000s. So they actually have more money than the people that are not living off the government.
John, I'm going to come back and be a guest on that side, and because I wasn't going to argue with you today, but I will come back and answer those someday. Go ahead, caller.
I want to ask John how many times he goes in the grocery store and buys groceries.
I go probably every day or two.
Do you notice how they go up and the
I do.
get smaller?
I do.
And you think there's people that's not out there that's homeless, that's hurting?
There are some people out there that are homeless and hurting, but the vast majority that are on government assistance right now are not. A lot of them are taking advantage of people like you and me. And the problem with the minimum wage, Red, is when you go in there and you look at those potatoes, the boy that's putting those potatoes out on the shelf, if you increase the Cook's Food Store cost for hiring him 25%, your potatoes are going to go up 25%.
But still, I think minimum wage should go up.
But your costs will go up. Don't you understand that?
More people would go to work, I think.
That you take money out of one side and you put it in the other, but you haven't created any new money.
Well, ain't that the way we work anyway?
No, we don't. What happens is the store keeps their costs down so they're able to get new products in. When they get new products in, people go, oh, I love that product. I'm going to quit going to Red Food Store. I'm going to go to Cook's Store. And then Cook's makes more, and they're able to earn more and pay more, and people get more that way. You build business. Government doesn't create it.
I'll tell you what let's do. Let's just bring them Mexicans in, let them work for nearly nothing, because they will, and let America go.
Well, that's what this president wants to do, is give them amnesty.
I think that's what John wants to do right now.
All right, let me ask you a question here, since we don't have. In 1964, I believe it was, a few years before you was born, Andy, but
a couple years.
Congress passed the Appalachian Development Project, APD 40, as part of that Appalachian Development Project. That's what APD stands for, Appalachian Development Project number 40, and the Corridor K. Corridor K is this area here. There's been a road talked about going across Polk County into North Carolina for 50 years now. Democrats, Republican governors, and the cost now would go up. It'd take 10 years to build the road. I'd always said that this would open North Carolina into Bradley County and Dalton and McMinn. Why do you think that road's never been built?
It's too expensive. I mean, everybody wants it. I don't think anybody disagrees. Well, I mean, some of the environmentalists don't want it.
Yes.
But now I will tell you, there was one idea. I read an interesting essay about the stimulus spending that the president did, $800 billion. that was kind of parceled out, and it bought all kinds of political favors. I can tell you that they analyzed where it went. About 80% of it went into Democrat congressman districts, and it went for a project here, a project there. And to be honest, the American people on lots of different levels, they didn't get anything they could see, and so it created a bad feeling in America. It certainly didn't help our outlook for the future because no one could see it, and a lot of it was actually wasted. This essay said if he had taken that $800 billion and said, I'm going to do one project, maybe it was a new interstate from coast to coast, maybe it was a road like this Appalachian development, across the mountain. I think that kind of project, even though it's a big government project, at the end, the taxpayer has something they can put their hands on. They could drive across that road. It would have been better for some of that vast amount of money to have been concentrated and spent on some projects that really might have made a difference.
Right. Well, I agree with you, John.
Whenever you see those American Recovery and Reinvestment Act signs on the way to Chattanooga, that's what some of the stimulus money went to. So
one
I don't
of them
know
was on Ocoee Street that's been paved 10 times in the last 20 years.
And those are tangible things that you can see. But other than that, Ron's picking on me, I think, because he's going back to 1964, and that's about 20 years before I was born.
I thought Franklin was going to be here.
But no, he decided to take the day off because of that
Franklin
question.
was born in 1964,
Right.
Ron.
But yeah, corridor case just a money issue, and that there's just not the funding out there, and it's going to be something that's going to be a long time in the making.
If we started 50 years ago, the project was expensive in $64, but there was a lot of federal monies there, and then the environmentalists got a hold of it, and they wanted it a different way. So it's just a project there that I thought brings economy to this area. And I agree with John for the fact is that Bradley County used stimulus money, John. Matter of fact, I can tell you,
my point
I'm
is
very familiar with 4 or 5 of the projects they did.
Sometimes you can spend a lot of money on a lot of things and not have much, whereas you could spend a lot of money on 1 or 2 things and have a lot more.
Right. You see, I've always thought that the bridge programs in the United States, which we have problems with bridges apparently from the inspectors, if we spent that money, there's money we can't ship to China. It has to be people working here in America. It has to be the concrete from America. So those type of stimulus packages I thought would have been a better thing. So, but hey, we just got a few more minutes here. Call us at 614-5553. Got Andy Brown, John Stansberry here on Backfire, and we've been talking some politics here today. Real quick, we got 5 minutes unless a call comes in. Senate passed a bill Tuesday probably, that said that if you are a gun permit owner, you can carry your gun anywhere you want to, not into the building, but into the parking lot.
No, it didn't say that you can carry it. It said that
you can bring it.
It can be in your car,
Yeah.
locked in,
That's
I believe,
what I
the
meant.
glove compartment.
Yeah, well, and this is against rules such as Volkswagen, who had a policy against that. Now, I'm sure there's other corporations and stores, and it also means they can bring them in your driveway, and whether you want to. Now, pros or cons. We got a call. Let's go ahead.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I think it'd be a great idea if all these millionaire politicians that run for any office would voluntarily go and live homeless on the streets of their city for 1 week. They would have a better idea of what's going on with homeless folks.
So you said every politician ought to live on the streets for a week?
I think that'd be. I agree. I think that'd be a good idea.
They'd be better informed of how these folks live and help the people in good old USA instead of the 40 in the country. I see these commercials on TV where they've been supporting poor people for 60 years, and they say there's 30,000 dying every night. Undoubtedly, they're not doing too good a job with the money they're taking in.
Well, I would actually extend that idea out a little further, because right now when Congress passes a law, let's say a new OSHA law that affects workplaces, it doesn't apply to Congress. I think that any law they pass, they ought to have to live with.
I think if we could extend it just to John, Bradley County would be a lot better. We put him out on the streets for a little bit, he might start understanding what people go through.
The problem is not whether you care, and I will have to be honest, Andy. I mean, that's a good comment, and it gets a laugh, and people go, "Oh, isn't that great?" but it doesn't really help anybody, and it really deflects the conversation, because the point here is not whether you care about people. It's not whether you understand that there are people suffering. It's how do we best help those people. And right now in America, anybody that strays from the politically correct ideas gets castigated and gets said, oh, well, you don't care about people. You don't care about the homeless. We can care about people and have a disagreement about how we work on it. And to be honest, putting someone else down or saying they don't care about an issue really hurts all of us, because it closes off the dialogue and it keeps us from finding maybe a solution to the problem.
Remember that.
It's also good to have an understanding, though, of what people go through. And
just because I don't agree with you on how to fix it doesn't mean I don't understand it, and that's insulting to say to people.
But any day that you want to come to the juvenile court of Bradley County or come to one of the schools and deal with the free and reduced lunch program and talk to the administrators about it, you'll see a whole different side of this program.
Here's the problem. Monday I did 3 magic shows for probably 400 kids in 2 schools that have pretty high free and reduced lunch programs. I do that every year, probably 20 to 30 magic shows every year. I've done it for 25 years. I don't brag about it. I don't put it in the paper. And this idea that because I don't politically agree with someone, all of a sudden I don't understand and I don't care, that doesn't help us. It doesn't help fix the problem.
Okay. We got one more caller here. Go ahead, caller.
It's Bird Dog.
Hey, Bird Dog.
Hey, the only way we're going to get any changes is start at home. And starting at home means term limits.
I agree, Bird Dog. I think that'd be great.
I agree with you too, Bird Dog.
We need term limits, because what's sucking us dry is not only all this money going out for foreign aid and helping these people and helping, all these other people. It's our politicians. You get these career politicians up here, we're going to pay them for the rest of their lives and all their benefits too. And when that system was set up, it was not set up for a career politician. It was set up for you to want to go help your country, your city, and do what you can do and get out and let somebody else in.
Oh, okay. I agree with you, Andy.
I don't have any objection.
Well, why don't we get anything moving now? Everybody agrees on it, but nobody does anything.
Well, everybody agrees on it except the guys that would have to vote it in.
The people who vote for it are not going to do it.
We're going to have to force that. And Bird Dog, we ought to have that on a local level, and I'm probably going to make a lot of people mad. And that's in the Tennessee State Constitution. But I'm just not entirely sure that people ought to be in office for decades because it changes the way you think about things. So I'm for term limits.
I agree 100%.
And by the way, I want to thank him. He's driven me up to Dayton the last 2 or 3 weeks, taking a master cattle beef class, and I appreciate them being nice enough to let me ride along.
You're welcome.
All right. Thank you, Bird Dog. Well, folks, that's been Backfire today. Thank you very much. Steve Hickson will be here next week, and I don't know, Andy might be back. Franklin might.
Never know.
Both of you did a great job here today, and like I say, I'd like to thank you. Backfire replays today at noon, and then also Saturday morning from 8 to 9. You can also hear Backfire. So you get 3 chances to hear us argue and complain. And now when the mic goes off, I'm going to have a long talk with John. So
you're going to have a long talk with me for?
No, I just get. All right, thanks, folks. That's been Backfire.
You've been listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson, John Stanberry, and Franklin Chancey. Catch them again on Whoop FM at noon today and every Wednesday morning from 7:30 to 8:30. Now, back to more music on Whoop FM.
Looking for America's original music? You just found it at 99.9 Whoop FM.